As a result, more people are able to vote. I think it's a perfect balance, and I'm excited about that. And I think you're going to see it once again this November, a record number of people come vote and come vote Republican.
Okay, Scott. The conflict is escalating between parental rights and the benefits of a public education. What is your solution?
Yeah, I mean, again, we've addressed this topic, but let me give you some real world, like what I've done, right? So House Bill 787, when I was in the legislature, we realized then and there that the traditional model, one size fits all, is not for everybody. So I passed a bill. Our charter schools, they're public schools, but offer a different model, more flexibility, different type of student, were woefully underfunded. So I took the leadership to pass the bill, got it done, and now more parents and students. We have one right here in Peachtree Corners near us. It teaches Japanese immersion. So if you or your child, that was something you were passionate about, that's a charter school they can fix. Your zip code should not determine your destiny. And so, unfortunately, for so many kids in Georgia, it does, and that's wrong. You should be able to, you, the parent, should have choice over where your child goes. You know, I talked to a gentleman, one of the bills that I tried to work on was expansion of SB 10. SB 10 gives you your tax dollars if you have a child with special needs and have more flexibility around that. He said, Scott, I've got a child with autism. He only learns by communicates with the keypad. But it costs money, I've got to refresh it. You know, man, I wish I had more of my tax dollars to teach him with this type of technology. That's the kind of forward-thinking innovation that we need to lean into. The old conventional bricks and sticks that no longer works, we've got to join the 21st century and be creative and innovative in education, and that comes from you, the parent, you, the citizen, you, the community.
I think when we talk about what happened in COVID, we were, again, even our educational system was hit with something that they were not, they will all be honest, they were not prepared for. Our teachers were not trained to do remote learning at that age group, much less parents who were now working at home had to try to figure out ways in which to keep their children in front of that computer and engaged. So I think, you know, we've learned some things. One of the things we've passed is some additional funding now for our teachers in training to learn how to do remote learning for children. So those are the kinds of things. When I think of parents' control or involvement, when our sons were going through school, we got every week, we got a syllabus of what our kids would be learning, what books they were supposed to be reading, you know, what tests were coming up. So we as engaged parents, if we had a problem with that, we were always able to go and talk with the teachers, per se, to address that, see what did or didn't fit with our kids. I think we still have that here in Fulton County especially. A lot of great teachers have been through a lot teaching, put into situations where how they teach sometimes can be scrutinized. Versus I'm not a trained educator. I knew what my kids did need, I agree with that, but I was able to work through the school system to get what they needed.
Okay, Mary, you're up. A couple of years, this is a lengthy one, so have a seat. A couple of years ago, the federal standard deduction was increased. As a result, for many, standard deduction became more advantageous than itemizing in Georgia. In Georgia, however, did not increase the state standard deduction and does not allow a taxpayer to itemize for the state return if they did not itemize for their federal return. This leaves many in a situation where their federal tax savings are offset by higher state income taxes. Will you increase the state standard deduction to align it with the federal standard deduction so taxpayers are not penalized by the state when they minimize their federal taxes?
Simple answer, yes. We've already started looking at that, working on that again as we look to reduce the overall income tax levels. There was some legislation that came forward. It didn't make it through, so that will be coming back up. So I would say yes.
You can repeat.
Kudos to whoever asked that question. Jeez, guys. We have a CPA in the room. Yeah, when I was down there was a bill. I mean, there's a lot of bills that pass unanimous, and this one generally did. There's usually an annual cleanup bill. You know, the feds are always changing what they're doing, and so we've got a line at the state level. And so, yes, that's something that we ought to get cleaned up and fixed. But drawing from my experience working for the governor and making recommendations to him, there are a number of tax loopholes, breaks, items that need to be adjusted and fixed. We have an inventory tax here in Georgia, so that really penalizes small business. And in fact, there's one story. It was a jeweler down in Savannah that on December 31st, and I don't want to wrap this guy out, but he loads up his inventory in his truck, drives down to Florida, parks the truck just to get around the inventory tax here in Georgia. You know, when we're creating these kind of incentives for business owners, we've got to clean that up. We've got another tax, a capital stock tax here in Georgia. Just for the right to own the business, you've got to pay a stock tax. And so there's just certain nonsensical taxes that, you know, you got to trust the bank and the finance guy to go in there, roll up his sleeves, and fix that, because we're competing against 49 other states. And I want Georgia to be the best, brightest, and most attractive state. And so you do that by getting rid of all this kind of nonsense, like some of the items you mentioned there.
Okay. Georgia economy seems to be faring better than most, but I still see businesses forced to close because they can't get employees to come to work. What can you do as a state legislator to address this concern?
You know, one of the best kept secrets we have in Georgia is our technical college system and our high in-demand career academies. So in Georgia, there's about 12 in demand. So what we do is we go to the private sector and say, what job do you need the most? And they tell us. And then we say, we'll offer you free training and education to recruit more folks into the workforce. So we need to expand that program and really kind of get in early with kids to let them know that, hey, there's no new philosophy factories opening in Georgia. We need people who have trade skills, who can go to work, get the job done. If you want to be a plumber, go be a plumber. Let's educate you. Heck, start your own plumbing business, you know. But I think this issue of workforce, it starts around education. It starts early. We've got to expose kids to, hey, what careers are out there and available to you? And then put our money where our mouth is and make sure kids are educated so that companies, you're right, who move to Georgia, bring thousands of jobs, have the workforce they need. I do want to salute the conservative leadership over the last 20 years in this state has really made us an amazing place to live, work, and grow a business. And we are absolutely, our economy is on the right track thanks to it. Again, I don't know why you would change, that conservative leadership. I would keep things going. I think, frankly, that's why you're going to see our governor win a second term because of his leadership and the Republican-led General Assembly behind him doing the things that need to be done in our state.
So I agree, we need to start young. The Rotary Club that I'm part of, Roswell Rotary, we actually do a program into elementary school. We start with some building programs. It's an after-school program to teach kids how much fun it is to build something. Then by middle school, we have it goes on, and then into high school. So trying to introduce children at various ages. One of the things I'd love to see, I was privileged to travel down to South Georgia. We actually have a wonderful program. It's an apprenticeship program versus an internship program. So it is done through our technical college system of Georgia, but it's also done through a manufacturing plant. So high school sophomores come in to this manufacturing plant, and they go both to school and they go a few hours here. By 11th grade, if they go through the process, they then are getting paid about $9 an hour for the time they're on site. And then by their senior year, they get paid $11 an hour. What's interesting about this process, when they graduate from high school, they graduate with a 2-year associate degree from the Technical College System of Georgia. They graduate with an international certification in a very specific manufacturing plant. So I've been talking with some of our car dealers and car repair places up here, because now so much of our cars it's computers, you know. My dad was an auto parts salesman, so I knew how to change a belt and do everything on a car way back when. I couldn't do it now. But I think those are the kinds of things, opportunities, when we introduce our students young enough and start those processes. And working with Fulton County School Systems, for me, has been great to do that.
All right, Mary. Do you support shutting down businesses if there is another pandemic?
I'm going to say it depends on what the pandemic is. I'm not talking about shutting down businesses, but, you know, I used to work at Emory, and I worked through when Ebola came into this country. I'm sorry, I mean, we need to figure out ways in which, if it becomes spread so wide, we need to have controls in place. I don't want to shut down businesses, I want to save lives. So I think what we've learned, I think we may have learned other ways to do business outside of. I know what we used to do, the restaurants in Roswell where we lived, you know, what we did pass in the state of Florida during COVID, we passed that the restaurants could sell alcohol to you to drive away with, as long as it's in a closed container. So you could go and get your food and buy a bottle of wine from them to try to keep them open. So we used to do that, you know, a couple of times a week. We would order our food. We would get a bottle of wine from the restaurant to try to keep them open. So I think we might need to look at opportunities for how do we adjust. Not all businesses. I would probably say someone would still have to explain to me why a tattoo parlor is an essential business. I'm sorry. I have a problem with that. I think there are places that we would need to be open, and I'm not against tattoo parlors. I just think if we are in a true pandemic where 30,000 plus Georgians lost their lives, if not more, shouldn't we all be taking care of each other?
I would submit to you that tattoo parlor and the owner and his family who are trying to feed themselves and live and subsist and keep their employees matter. They matter a lot. And in Georgia, we've been able to balance lives and livelihoods. You know, again, you don't need to look far to see the states that have reopened late. Businesses have closed in droves. Lives have been hurt. You're seeing mental health issues. People who have died as a result of that. It's been awful to witness, but fortunately here in Georgia, we were able to keep people safe, reopen safely, and our economy is booming because of that decision. You know, again, I'll point back to the record. The record is this: voting no against the COVID liability shield, that little thing you see on the door of your small business that says you can't sue me if you get COVID, businesses would not have reopened if that did not exist. Because they know that the first person through those doors, whether it's a barbershop or a tattoo parlor, they wouldn't have opened the doors because they know they would have gotten sued. And that's closing business right there, shutting it down. We know the difference between the parties. It's crystal clear, right? We want to balance lives and livelihoods, do what's best to keep people safe from any kind of future pandemic, COVID, while at the same time, people got to make they got to write paychecks. They got to keep people fed. They got to keep people employed. I applaud the governor, the Republican General Assembly, for striking that right balance. Yes, I will fight at all costs to make sure businesses, your businesses, government should never get in the way of closing your church, your business.
Good. Okay. When Governor Kemp legalized hemp crops in Georgia, he only allowed 5 grow licenses. Unfortunately, limitation on the number of claims has resulted in ongoing litigation. As a result, that hemp, an environmentally friendly crop with many industrial uses, is still not grown in Georgia. What are your plans for the hemp industry in Georgia?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, talk about how old this issue is. I think I was around when we voted to approve that. And man, this is like the perfect example of what happens when government gets involved. We approved that thing going back 5-6 years now, and they're still fumbling around trying to figure out how to issue licenses to folks. So I believe they've got a new executive director, and they're working on it. It's getting close. But again, anytime federal or state government gets involved, things get slowed down and bureaucratic and a mess. And so that's the lawyer that I'm going to be when I get down there for you is, a lot of the constituents that reach out to me are, Scott, I'm having issues with Department of Revenue, Secretary of State. You need a powerful advocate who can actually get stuff done and be your voice down there so that when I make that call and say, hey, I've got a constituent that has a real issue that needs to be solved today, it gets solved today. And so whether it's with the hemp industry or you've got trouble filing your state tax return here in Georgia, I'm going to be on call 24/7 for you to get that stuff done.
So actually, 2 licenses have been released, finally. And I agree there was a issue when we talked about our wonderful Republican-led government. That was the holdup in getting those licensures through the 5. They went back and forth as to what were the requirements, even though the law was pretty clear as to what supposedly were going to be the requirements. So 2 have been just recently issued. We still don't have it grown yet here, so that's going to start, I think, in just a little bit.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to do. This is going to be the last question, and then we're going to go to a 7-minute wrap-up of make the case for each candidate. Okay? So, Mary, you go first on this. Do you support the de facto decriminalization of shoplifting, turnstile jumping, trespass, burglary, and illegal gun possession, and some of the crimes that district attorneys are declining to prosecute based on racial grounds?
No.
Words are nice, but records are different, right? So here's the record. Like, there was a bill that came through to increase penalties on those who have aided fleet police. My opponent voted no on that. So it's nice to say no, I'm not going to vote for decriminalization, but that's exactly what's been done. So, you can say one thing, but your record speaks volumes, No, I think we're seeing a growing trend. We absolutely need to be empathetic to people, meet them at their needs, help them. But when it comes to law and order, no, we can't turn a blind eye. I mean, we're witnessing again the impacts of that on our communities, and we've got to stand firm with where we're at. So the answer is no.
Okay, Scott, 7 minutes to wrap up and make the case. Why you?
7 minutes, man. It's 8:30, so I'm gonna keep it short. I'm gonna do this. It's tough when you're challenging an incumbent, right? Because I've got to point out all the reasons why she's not great and I'm great, and I think I did this in our first debate. I want to do it again. I want to publicly thank. I know I've been tough on you tonight. I've been really tough on you. I've been tough on you. You've been nice. I want to thank you for 4 years of service. I know I just went with 2, and I know the toll it takes on you personally, your family, everything you've got to go through to go drive down to the Capitol and serve there. So I want to thank Roy, her husband. I want to thank Mary, you, her staff, all those who step up to lead. It's a big commitment. With that said, there is a clear difference between the parties. Very clear difference in our state. We have a very clear difference on our ballot this November, and you've got a choice between a candidate who's got the experience, got the know-how, has the passion, the ability to go down and do it, who knows the issues that are important to voters and get it done. Someone who's got a proven record of going across the aisle, working with a colleague, co-sponsoring a bill with a Democrat, and then getting it all the way from start to finish. You've got someone who has worked at the highest level of state government to get things done, to work alongside a governor who's been incredibly effective for our state. You've got someone who's got the support of grassroots all across the entire district. And it would just be an honor to serve you. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up super quick. Early voting starts this Monday, this upcoming Monday, not today, October 17th. We've got to go in and make it happen. Pro tip, if you don't want to keep getting the mail in your box, go vote early. We begin to kind of weed you out. Mail stops for you. I know that's a big thing for a lot of folks. But November 8th, we face a very, very big choice. And the choice is this. Do you want more spending, more inflation, more lost savings, less wages? Or do you want prosperity, safe community, or good schools? If you believe in those things, I ask for your vote on November 8th for Scott Hilton. Thank you.
So first I want to thank you, Tom, for organizing this, and again, everyone who came out, sat with us through this, so appreciate that. You know, when I decided to run again, as I said, it was about having conversations with people. You know, for the 4 years I've been able to do that, all within my district. It's been an amazing journey. People want solutions. They are tired of the bickering. They are tired of one party versus another party. They want solutions. And I believe that I have been able to do that. What's interesting is when you are in the minority party, what you have to learn very quickly is how to get what you might call your agenda or your ideas through with working with the majority. And that's what I've done. I've done it on numerous bills. When Scott says that I've authored 5 bills, 0 passed, 4 of those 5 bills were picked up and put into Republican legislation and passed. And that's good. Because to me, that's why I am doing this. I am not doing this to have my name first author on a bill. I am not doing this for anything other than to serve the constituents and to serve the people of Georgia. As I said, my family and I have had great opportunities in Georgia and throughout our lives, and I want to continue to work for all of you to have those same opportunities. Our sons went through Fulton County school systems, you know, first through 12th grade. Ended up going, one went to Emory, one went to Vanderbilt. Fulton County school system is an amazing public school system. I've had a healthcare background, but we've always had great healthcare. Everyone needs that kind of healthcare. As I said, my son had open heart surgery. The last time was when he was a 35-year-old, 6 years ago. My son runs triathlons in between when he has to go and have open heart surgeries. It's just, he competes, but sometimes his heart just needs to be tweaked. But he's always had great health care. What I'm very proud of, and I'm going to brag on my sons, he actually does medical research at Emory, now the one that had the heart condition. So when I look at the amount of money that got spent on his health care, I think it's great. He was actually part of a team that developed the Moderna vaccine. So, you know, when we look at those kinds of things, when we work together, I'm going to also, you know, applaud when we were in the middle of the pandemic. Operation Warp Speed, that was led by the federal government under President Trump, was a great thing. We got a vaccine to in arms. Some people didn't like it, within a year or so. Now, we had been working on this model for almost 20 years, so it wasn't something brand new. But when we work together, we can save lives, we can keep businesses open, we can have great education, we can all succeed, we can all have those same opportunities, and I think that's what we all want. So, again, obviously early voting, vote for me. I think I have been successful. You know, it's a difference of opinion as to why. I think when you have to work from the minority perspective to get things done in a way that maybe your name isn't the first author, but that's okay. We get things done.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, one quick announcement on YouTube. We have a YouTube page, MB Debate Series, and this video will be up there in 48 hours with the magic of Zane Edge, which I appreciate. Now, would you do me a favor and give a great hand to both of these candidates?